Good evening and welcome. Close your eyes and let the horizon of your day dissolve into a soft, bruised purple. Somewhere, far beyond the reach of the waking mind, a great winter is beginning, not with a roar of ice, but with the rhythmic, hushing fall of a snow that never melts. Tonight, we do not watch the end of the world as a tragedy of fire, but as a necessary, heavy cooling. We are traveling to the plains of Vigrid, where the gods have already laid down their crowns, and the world serpent has found its final rhythmic pulse in the deep. As you settle into the weight of your blankets, imagine them as the silver mail of the Einherjar, protective, solid, and still. The sun has breathed its last golden sigh, and the stars are finding their new quiet anchors in the velvet dark. There is no more armor to carry, and no more hammers to swing. There is only the long oceanic surge of the new earth rising from the deep, and the steady ancient heartbeat of a legend that has finally found its rest. The fire is out, the water is still, and the night is ready to receive you. The world does not end with a sudden crash, but with a long, suffocating silence. It begins with Fimbulwinter, a name whispered in dread by the poets of old, signifying 3 consecutive winters where the sun provides no warmth and the snow never melts. This is not the familiar seasonal shift of the northern latitudes, but a cosmic stalling of the gears of time. The heavens have grown weary of the cycle, and the golden chariot of the sun travels a path that offers light without heat, leaving the world in a state of brittle, crystalline stasis. The first winter descends with a strange, heavy quiet. The autumn leaves do not fall to the forest floor to rot. They are frozen mid-air, encased in a sudden frost that turns the woods into a cathedral of glass. The animals of the wild, sensing a shift that goes beyond the instinct of hibernation, seek shelters that no longer exist. The rhythmic heartbeat of the earth slows, each pulse taking longer than the last, until the ground itself feels as unyielding as the iron forged in the heart of Nidavellir. As the second winter merges into the first, the winds begin to howl with a predatory hunger. These are not mere gusts of air, but the breath of the world void, stripping the bark from the trees and turning the once vibrant fjords into jagged mirrors of ice. The sea, which once surged with the life of the tides, becomes a silent, white wasteland. Huge bergs of ice grind against one another in the dark, a sound like the bones of giants breaking under an impossible, invisible weight. By the arrival of the third winter, the very concept of spring has become a forgotten myth. The snow has piled so high that it swallows the longhouses of Midgard, turning villages into a series of white mounds in a featureless landscape. The horizon is a blur of gray and white, where the sky and the earth meet in a seamless, suffocating embrace. There is no relief, no thaw, and no promise of a new morning. There is only the unrelenting descent of the frost. Families huddle around dying hearths, the last of their timber crackling with a desperate orange light. The warmth of the fire extends only a few inches from the stone, failing to push back the encroaching shadows that dance upon the timbered walls. In the silence between the gusts of the wind, the only sound is the rhythmic, shallow breathing of those who wait for a dawn that refused to come. The hearth, once the center of life and song, has become a small, fragile island in an ocean of cold. The frost creeps across the threshold with a patient, predatory grace. It traces intricate fern-like patterns on the iron of the door hinges and the wood of the benches. It is a cold that does not merely bite the skin, it seeks the marrow, the memory, and the very soul of Midgard. It numbs the mind, turning thoughts into slow, drifting flakes of snow. In this deep freeze, the ambitions of kings and the labor of farmers are rendered equally meaningless by the overwhelming power of the elements. Brother turns against brother as the scarcity of the long winter drains the well of human empathy. The bonds of kinship, once the strongest force in the Norse world, begin to fray like old rope under tension. This is the moral winter that accompanies the physical one, a time of axe ages and sword ages, where the survival of the self outweighs the survival of the tribe. The social order, like the frozen ground, cracks and heaves, unable to sustain the pressure of a world without light. Deep in the woods, the great tree Yggdrasil begins to weep sap that turns to ice before it can hit the roots. The squirrels and birds that once inhabited its branches have fled or fallen silent. The Norns at the well of Urd find their fingers too stiff to weave the threads of fate, the loom of the universe growing heavy with the rime of the end. Even the gods in Asgard feel the chill, their divine blood slowing as they look down upon the white shroud covering the world they once guarded. This is the silence of the transition. It is the moment between the last breath of the old world and the first gasp of the new. The Fimbulwinter is a cleansing through cold, a stripping away of the unnecessary until only the essential remains. It is a time for the world to dream of fire, for the ice cannot exist without the memory of the flame it has extinguished. The silence is not an absence of sound, but a presence of gravity, a weight that pulls every living thing toward the earth. Above the frozen clouds, the celestial hunt reaches its zenith, a chase that has defined the rhythm of the cosmos since the first dawn. The wolf Skoll, whose name translates to mockery, has pursued the sun chariot across the sky for eons, his breath a constant heat at the back of the goddess Sol's neck. For thousands of years, the golden horses, Arvakr and Alsvidr, have galloped just ahead of those gnashing teeth, their manes casting the light that allowed the crops to grow and the oceans to shimmer. But as the Fimbulwinter chokes the world below, the strength of the sun begins to fail, her light turning from a vibrant gold to a pale, sickly amber. The wolf feels the shift in the cosmic wind. He senses the exhaustion in the celestial steeds and the flickering resolve of the goddess. Skoll is not merely a beast of flesh and fur, but a primordial force of hunger, an embodiment of the vacuum that seeks to reclaim the light. His paws strike the invisible paths of the atmosphere with the sound of muffled thunder, each stride closing the gap that once seemed infinite. The distance between the predator and the prey, once measured in leagues of starlight, is now measured in mere heartbeats, and the shadow of the wolf begins to cast a jagged, dark stain across the solar disk. With a snap of celestial jaws that vibrates through the foundations of the 9 realms, the light is suddenly and violently extinguished. There is no slow sunset, no lingering twilight of a summer evening. There is only the sudden, terrifying realization that the source of all life has been consumed. The goddess soul, the radiant heart of the world, vanishes into the gullet of the void. In that moment, the heat of the universe seems to drain away instantly, leaving behind a cold so absolute that it feels like a physical weight pressing down upon the lungs of every living thing. A terrifying twilight falls over the realms, a bruised purple sky where the sun once reigned in majesty. The atmosphere becomes thick and heavy, saturated with the indigo hues of a permanent evening. Without the sun to define the passage of hours, time itself begins to feel fluid and unreliable. The shadows do not shift with the moving light. They become stagnant, deep pools of ink that cling to the sides of the mountains and the corners of the longhouses. It is a world caught in a singular, eternal moment of dusk, a transition that has no intention of ending. On the ground of Midgard, the people look up with eyes wide with a primal fear that transcends language. They see the wolf's mark upon the sky, a hollow, dark circle where the sun once sat, surrounded by a faint, ghostly corona of dying fire. The birds that were once fooled into silence by the winter now fall into a catatonic trance, their song extinguished by the darkness. The livestock in the pens low and bleat with a mournful frequency, sensing that the cycle of day and night, the very heartbeat of their existence, has been permanently broken. The shadows on the forest floor begin to stretch and never retreat, growing long and spindly like the fingers of a skeletal hand. These shadows are not merely the absence of light, they are the presence of the encroaching end. They seep into the cracks of the earth and the hollows of the trees, reclaiming the territory that the sun had won at the beginning of time. In this permanent evening, the familiar landmarks of the world become alien and threatening, as if the landscape itself is being rewritten by the darkness into a map of a different, more dangerous realm. In the halls of Asgard, the gods stand on the balconies of their golden palaces, watching the sky turn the color of a braised bruise. They do not speak, for the vanishing of the sun was the first true omen of the prophecy they had dreaded for centuries. Odin, the All-Father, watches from his throne, Hlidskjalf, his single eye reflecting the darkening heavens. He knows that the hunt is over and that the predator has finally won. The divine light that once reflected off the shields of the Valkyries is gone, replaced by a dull, oppressive gloom that softens the sharp edges of the celestial city. The air becomes still, the wind dying down, as if the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. Without the sun to stir the currents of the air, the world becomes a vacuum of silence. The only heat left is the residual warmth trapped within the stones and the deep waters, and even that begins to radiate away into the hungry dark. It is a time of profound introspection, where the lack of external light forces the mind to turn inward, exploring the private twilights of the soul. The darkness is a shroud, but it is also a mirror, reflecting the fears of a world that knows it is being unmade. This permanent evening is a bridge to the deep restorative sleep you are seeking, just as the sun has found her rest in the belly of the wolf. Let your own consciousness find its rest in the velvet folds of the story. There is no longer a need to watch the horizon for the dawn. The dawn is a concept for a different age. Here, in the indigo silence, there is only the rhythm of the darkness and the safety of the shadows. The world has closed its eyes, and you are invited to do so, drifting on the tide of a sky that no longer requires your attention. As you sink deeper into your bed, imagine the purple mist of the vanishing sun settling over your room. It is a heavy, soft blanket of color that mutes the sounds of the modern world and dims the lights of the mind. The chase is over, the hunter is satisfied, and the prey is at peace. The universe is preparing for its final transformation, and as it does, it offers you this sanctuary of shadow. Let the bruised light of the twilight be the last thing you see before the absolute peace of the dark takes hold.
As the sun falls, so too does her brother Mani, who has steered the silver chariot of the moon through the labyrinth of the stars since the first night was carved from the void. For eons, the moon has been the faithful guardian of the sleeping world, a cool and constant companion to the traveler and the dreamer alike. Its light was a gentle mercy, a soft reflection that gave shape to the darkness without shattering it. But as the solar fires are extinguished by Skoll, the lunar path grows treacherous and thin. The rhythm of the tides, once governed by the moon's steady hand, begins to falter, the oceans heaving in a confused and restless slumber. The second hunter, Hati, whose name signifies hatred, closes the distance in the velvet dark with a silent, terrifying grace. Unlike his brother who chased the heat, Hati hungers for the cold brilliance of the silver disk. He moves through the celestial ether like a shadow within a shadow, his fur blending perfectly with the ink-black sky. The moon chaser does not growl or howl. He is the personification of the inevitable end, a predator who knows that the light of the night is merely a borrowed glow. With every surge of his powerful limbs, the silver light of Mani's chariot flickers, casting long, erratic beams across the 9 realms. The silver crescent of the moon is swallowed whole in a single, silent moment that feels like the world's final intake of breath. The suddenness of the eclipse is a shock to the spiritual fabric of the universe, plunging the 9 realms into a true and absolute darkness. This is not the familiar darkness of a moonless night in summer, but a heavy, primordial gloom that seems to possess its own mass. Without the moon to provide a focal point for the eye, the horizon vanishes completely, leaving the mountains, the seas, and the forests to merge into a singular, featureless void where direction and distance no longer exist. The stars, sensing the total collapse of the cosmic order, begin to flicker and fail as if their ancient fuel has finally run dry. These distant suns, which have guided sailors and inspired poets since the beginning of time, lose their grip on the tapestry of the night. One by one, they begin to slide from their fixed positions in the firmament. They do not merely fade, they drop from the heavens like dying embers falling from a great hearth. Each star leaves a fleeting, burning trail behind it, a final, silent scream of light before it vanishes into the cold embrace of the atmospheric winds. The falling stars hiss as they vanish into the void, a sound that can only be heard by the soul in the deepest parts of the night. They do not strike the earth with a crash, but dissolved into fine silver ash before they reach the ground, turning the air into a shimmering mist of stardust. This is the disintegration of the map of the heavens, the erasure of the stories written in the constellations. The great bear, the hunter, and the world serpent of the stars are unmade.
their light returning to the chaos from which it was originally summoned by the gods of old. The great tree Yggdrasil is left to stand in a hollow, starless expanse, its massive branches silhouetted against a darkness that has no end. Without the celestial lights to illuminate its leaves, the tree appears as a towering pillar of shadow, its bark groaning under the weight of the absolute zero that now permeates the space between the realms. The dew that once fell from its leaves to form the rivers of the world now freezes into diamonds of black ice, clinging to the twigs like the tears of a dying universe. The tree is the only structure left in a world that has lost its ceiling.
Deep within the crust of the world, far beneath the layers of soil, stone, and ancient bone, a tectonic groan vibrates through the roots of all life. This is not the sharp, sudden crack of a localized tremor, but a fundamental shifting of the planetary gears, a deep, resonant hum that seems to emanate from the very heart of the void. The earth, which has served as a silent, unmoving stage for the dramas of gods and men, begins to lose its stillness. It is as if the world itself is waking from a long, heavy slumber, stretching its stony limbs and sighing with the weight of the eons it has carried. Yggdrasil, the world tree, the axis upon which all reality rotates, shudders from its highest leaf in the winds of Asgard to its deepest root in the mists of Niflheim. The great pillar of ash wood, once the symbol of an unbreakable cosmic order, begins to sway with a slow, agonizing rhythm. Its bark, thick as a mountain's flank, groans with the sound of 1,000 ships breaking apart on a rocky coast. The vibration travels upward through the trunk, rattling the halls of the gods and sending a shiver through the leaves that once whispered the secrets of the past, present, and future. Mountains that have stood for eons, their peaks crowned with the eternal snows of the north, begin to lose their ancient architecture. The granite spines of the world, once thought to be the very definition of permanence, start to crumble under the invisible pressure of the coming end. Huge slabs of rock, some the size of entire villages, shear away from the cliffs and begin a slow, thunderous descent into the valleys below. It is a landslide of a global scale, a deconstruction of the landscape that turns the jagged horizons into a chaotic sea of falling stone and rising dust. The rocky peaks cascade into the valleys like sand in an hourglass, a chillingly precise metaphor for the expiration of time. Each stone that falls is a second lost, a fragment of the old world returning to the dust from which it was first gathered. The valleys, once the cradles of life and the paths of rivers, are filled with the debris of the heights, leveling the world into a flat, unrecognizable plain of rubble. The geography of Midgard is being erased, the landmarks that guided the ancestors being buried under the weight of their own history. Ancient chains, forged by the master smiths of the dwarves in the fires of the deep earth, begin to stretch and groan. These are the bonds that held the monsters at bay, the magical fetters imbued with the weight of the mountains and the breath of the fish. In the darkness of the subterranean caverns, the iron and gold start to glow with a dull red heat as they reach their breaking point. The metal cries out with a high-pitched, metallic shriek that echoes through the caves, a warning that the constraints of the old law are no longer strong enough to hold back the chaos. The foundations of reality start to come undone, as if the very threads of the tapestry are being pulled by an unseen hand.
the physical laws that govern the fall of the rain and the flow of the rivers begin to warp and fray. Space itself seems to ripple like the surface of a disturbed pond, making the distance between objects feel elastic and uncertain. The solidity of the ground is no longer a guarantee. It has become a fluid, shifting thing that mirrors the instability of the celestial realms above, signaling that the architecture of the 9 realms is being dismantled. In the midst of this upheaval, there is a strange hypnotic rhythm to the destruction. As the mountains fall and the earth groans, the sound becomes a deep, low-frequency pulse, a brown noise of the cosmos that masks the sharper sounds of the modern mind. The rhythmic thrumming of the trembling earth acts as a powerful anchor for the senses, pulling your focus away from the frantic light of the day and into the heavy, grounded reality of the soil. It is a vibration that invites the muscles to go limp, surrendering their tension to the gravity of the shifting world. The groaning of the world tree is a lullaby of the ancient wood, a sound that speaks of endurance and the necessity of the fall. To hear the world tree tremble is to understand that even the strongest structures require a moment of release. As you lie in the safety of your sanctuary, let the imaginary vibration of the earth settle into your bones. Feel the weight of the blankets as the only earth you need to know, a solid and soft foundation that remains still while the story moves around you. You are the one point of stillness in a world that is finding its new center. This tectonic shift is the final clearing of the stage, the removal of the old scenery to make room for the silence that follows. The crumbling of the mountains is not a tragedy, but a simplification, a returning of the complex to the simple, the high to the low. In your mind, let the debris of your own day, the lists, the worries, the unfinished tasks, be the stones that fall into the valley. Let them be buried under the weight of the story, leaving only a flat, calm expanse where nothing is required of you but the act of breathing.
On the isolated island of Lyngvi, hidden in the center of the dark lake Svartnir, the impossible finally happens. For centuries, this place has been a prison for the most terrifying strength in the cosmos, a jagged rock where the gods thought they had permanently interred the chaos of the wild. But as the world begins to fray at the seams, the very air of the island grows heavy with the scent of ozone and ancient resentment. The silence of the lake is no longer the silence of peace, but the held breath of a predator that has calculated the exact moment of its release, waiting for the structural fatigue of the universe to grant it a final, jagged opening. The magical ribbon, Gleipnir, thin as a silken thread and as smooth as a lover's ribbon, begins to hum with a high, discordant frequency. Forged by the dark elves from the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, and the breath of a fish, it was a bond made of things that do not exist, designed to hold a strength that cannot be measured. But even the paradoxical magic of the dwarves has a limit. As the Fimbulwinter saps the vitality of the 9 realms, the silken cord starts to fray, its invisible fibers snapping one by one, with a sound like a violin string breaking in an empty hall. With a final explosive crack that echoes through the subterranean hollows of the earth, the ribbon shatters. Fenrir, the great wolf, stands unfettered for the first time in an age, his massive limbs trembling with the sudden absence of restraint. He does not immediately run. He stands in the center of the island,
his fur matted with the dust of centuries, his yellow eyes igniting with a fire that was kindled before the first star was born. The weight of the chains has left a ghost of pressure on his skin, a memory of captivity that fuels a rage so cold it feels like a physical frost emanating from his chest. He lets out a howl that pierces through the 9 realms, a sound of pure, unadulterated vengeance that travels through the roots of Yggdrasil like a lightning strike. It is a sound that every living thing recognizes in its blood, the cry of the wild returning to reclaim the civilized world. The howl carries the frequency of the end, a vibration that shatters the windows of Asgard and ripples the surface of the Well of Urd. It is a long, low to high frequency that starts in the belly of the earth and ends in the highest reaches of the atmosphere, announcing that the architect of ruin is finally active. Fenrir begins to grow, his physical form expanding to match the vastness of his hatred. His lower jaw brushes the frozen earth of Midgard, carving a trench through the mountains, while his upper jaw scrapes the very ceiling of the heavens, brushing against the ruins of the stars. He is no longer a wolf in any biological sense. He is a cavernous maw, a living void that seeks to consume the entirety of the creation that once sought to bind him. His breath is a foul wind of decay and ancient soot, a mist that follows him as he begins his slow, deliberate march toward the final battlefield.
The great ocean, that vast and churning cradle of all life, begins to boil, not with the searing heat of a fire, but with the cold tectonic thrashing of a titan. For eons, the world's waters were held in place by a singular, circular weight, Jormungandr, the Midgard Serpent. He was the belt that held the continents together, his tail locked firmly in his own jaws as he slumbered in the crushing pressures of the abyss. But as the cosmic order shatters, the serpent releases his grip. The sudden movement of his uncoiling body sends a shock wave through the water that reaches the deepest trenches and the highest cliffs, turning the steady rhythm of the tides into a chaotic, violent upheaval. As Jormungandr rises, the sheer displacement of his planetary mass sends mountainous tsunamis crashing against the shores of Midgard. These are not waves of water, but walls of liquid shadow, towering hundreds of feet into the bruised purple sky. They do not break with a splash, they collapse with a dull, heavy thud that levels forests and erases coastal villages in a single sweeping motion. The ocean is reclaiming the land, surging inland with a relentless, cold hunger that ignores the barriers of stone and soil. The map of the world is being redrawn by the flood, the familiar contours of the earth vanishing beneath a rising black tide. The serpent exhales a thick black venom into the air, a gaseous rot that hangs over the water like a heavy, suffocating shroud. This is the breath of the deep, a substance so toxic that it turns the very oxygen into a corrosive mist. As it settles, the mist mingles with the rising spray of the salt sea, turning the atmosphere into a toxic slurry that dims the last of the dying light. To breathe this air in the story is to feel the weight of the ancient world, a heavy, damp pressure that slows the lungs and forces the body to adopt a slow, rhythmic pace of survival. The serpent's scales, each the size of a warrior's shield and harder than dwarven steel, grind against the coastal cliffs as he hauls his massive length onto the land. The sound is a high-frequency shriek, followed by a low-frequency groan, a sound like 1,000 sharpening blades echoing through the mist. It is the sound of the earth being flayed, the grinding of the cosmic gears as the serpent transitions from the liquid world to the solid one. This rhythmic grinding acts as a powerful, hypnotic drone, a repetitive mechanical sound that masks the erratic noises of the modern world and pulls your mind into a deep, focused trance. Jormungandr is the personification of the unending, the cycle that has finally reached its breaking point. In the sanctuary of this narrative, the rising of the serpent represents the rising of the subconscious, the deep, quiet parts of the mind that only emerge when the sun has vanished. As the black tides surge inland, let them represent a flood of relaxation washing over your physical form. Feel the tide of sleep starting at your toes and rising slowly through your limbs, a heavy, cool, and irresistible force that pulls all tension back into the deep, dark ocean of the bed. There is a strange liquid grace to the serpent's movements, a serpentine flow that ignores the friction of the world. He does not move with the jagged energy of the wolf, but with a slow, relentless undulation that mirrors the movement of a deep-sea current. Each curve of his body is a mile-long wave of muscle, a rhythmic pulse that echoes the slow, heavy throb of your own resting heart. The world is becoming fluid, losing its sharp edges and its rigid structures, melting into a dark, watery expanse where there is no longer any need to stand tall or hold firm. The black venom in the air acts as a heavy sedative for the senses, a mist that mutes the colors of thought and softens the sounds of the internal monologue. In this toxic slurry, the sharp worries of the day lose their potency. They are neutralized by the ancient chemistry of the deep. You are breathing in the atmosphere of the myth, a thick, cool, and quiet air that fills the lungs with a sense of profound stillness. The world outside is being washed clean by the flood, and your mind is being washed clean by the slow, rhythmic delivery of the tale.
From the frozen, silent reaches of Helheim, where the air itself seems to have crystallized into a permanent state of grief, a macabre vessel finally untethers from the shore. This is Nogfar, a ship of such immense and unsettling proportions that its silhouette alone seems to bruise the horizon. It is not built from the sturdy oak of the Midgard forests or the golden timbers of Asgard, but constructed entirely from the untrimmed nails of the dead, a mosaic of billions of tiny, translucent fragments of human history. Each nail represents a life that has passed into the gray halls of the underworld, a silent testament to the countless souls who have waited in the shadows for this singular final voyage. The ship glides silently over the rising floodwaters, its hull cutting through the black, oily surface of the sea without producing a single ripple. There is no creak of timber or snap of sail. Nogfar moves with a spectral, gliding momentum that defies the laws of physics. It is a vessel of absolute weightlessness and absolute density, a paradox of the afterlife that carries within its hold an army of giants and pale, hollow-eyed spirits. These are the forgotten, the vengeful, and the quiet ones who have been gathered from the corners of the 9 realms, their collective breath a cold mist that trails behind the ship like a funeral shroud. The ship is helmed by the giant Hrym, a creature of ice and ancient sorrow, whose skin is the color of a winter storm. He stands at the prow, his hands, which have not felt warmth for 1,000 years, gripping a tiller made of frozen bone. Hrym does not steer with frantic energy. He guides the ship with a slow, deliberate precision, his eyes fixed on the distant dark plain of Vigrid. He is the navigator of the end, a pilot who understands that the destination has been written in the runes since the beginning of time. Under his steady hand, Nogfar becomes a needle threading through the fabric of a dying world. The prow of the ship cuts through the dark water with a chilling metallic precision, a sound that is less a splash and more a rhythmic, crystalline slicing. This sound echoes through the mist of the poisoned tides, a repetitive and hypnotic cadence that acts as a focal point for the wandering mind. It is a sound that signifies the inevitable approach of the final meeting, a steady tick-tick of the cosmic clock. In the sanctuary of your rest, let this rhythmic slicing be a tool for your own mental pruning, a sharp, clean edge that cuts away the lingering threads of the day's conversation and the static of the modern world. As the ship moves closer to the final battlefield, the air around it grows impossibly still. The wind seems to avoid Nogfar, as if even the atmosphere is wary of touching a vessel built from the remains of the departed. To imagine yourself on the deck of this ship is to experience a state of profound, detached observation. You are a passenger in a narrative that has already been decided, a traveler in a realm where the frantic needs of the living have no power. There is a strange, quiet freedom in being part of this spectral procession, a sense of letting go of the ego and merging with the vast, cool stream of the past.
To the south, the horizon begins to glow with a malevolent, searing heat that pierces through the bruised purple twilight of the fading world. This is not the gentle, life-giving warmth of the sun, but a primordial, hungry fire that has been coiling in the bowels of Muspelheim since before the first spark was struck. The darkness of the north is suddenly challenged by a wall of deep, pulsating crimson, a light so intense that it seems to vibrate against the cold air of the Fimbulwinter. It is the arrival of the inevitable heat, the thermodynamic conclusion to a universe that began in ice and must now end in flame. Surtur, the guardian of the burning realm, leads his army of fire giants toward the center of the world. He is a titan of soot and cinder, his skin the color of cooling lava, and his eyes two pits of white-hot intensity. Surtur does not march with the frantic energy of a conqueror, but with the steady, rhythmic persistence of a forest fire. Each step he takes leaves a blackened, smoking crater in the frozen earth, the frost turning instantly to steam with a sharp, rhythmic hiss. He is the personification of the cleansing burn, the necessary heat that must dissolve the old structures before a new life can sprout. He carries a sword that outshines the sun, a blade of pure living flame that seems to bleed light into the starless sky. The sword, known in the ancient whispers as the Searing One, does not reflect light, it generates it, casting a long, flickering shadow behind the army that stretches across the 9 realms. As Surtur swings the blade in a slow, hypnotic arc,
The very air it touches begins to char and crackle. The light of the sword acts as a rhythmic pulse, a slow-motion strobe that marks the steady, deliberate pace of the march toward the final battlefield. As the fire giants advance, the earth beneath them turns to ash in a silent, powdery transformation. The frozen fjords and the jagged ice peaks that defined the winter are decimated by the sheer proximity of the heat. The soil does not crumble, it simply ceases to be solid, returning to a state of elemental dust. This creates a vast gray wake behind the army, a desolation that is strangely quiet and clean. In the sanctuary of your rest, let this burning away represent the dissolution of the mental clutter, the sharp, frozen worries of the day being softened and turned to harmless ash by the slow heat of the story. The rivers in the path of the march evaporate into steam before the giants even reach their banks, creating a wall of fog that hides the advancing wall of fire. This fog is thick, warm, and humid, a stark contrast to the biting cold of the previous chapters. It wraps around the landscape like a heavy, damp blanket, muting the sounds of the world and softening the sharp edges of the rubble. To imagine yourself within this mist is to experience a state of profound sensory insulation. It is a warm, quiet space where the vision is blurred and the hearing is dampened, providing a perfect white noise for the mind to settle. There is a deep subsonic hum that accompanies the march, the sound of the Earth's internal fires being pulled to the surface. It is a low-frequency vibration that you can feel in your marrow, a rhythmic thrumming that mirrors the slow, heavy pulse of a world in transition. This sound acts as a powerful anchor for the body, a gravitational pull that invites the limbs to sink deeper into the mattress. The heat of the story is not a thing to fear, but a heavy, sedative warmth that encourages the muscles to go limp and the breath to become a slow, rhythmic sigh of relief. Surtur's army moves with a singular, collective focus, their footsteps creating a rhythmic crush and hiss cadence. This repetitive sound is the clock of the apocalypse, a steady and reliable beat that drowns out the erratic thoughts of the waking mind. It is a mechanical, elemental sound that requires no analysis and no response. You are merely an observer of the heat, tucked away in the cool shadows of the north, watching the crimson glow on the horizon from a place of absolute safety. The fire is distant, the mist is thick, and the rhythm is steady. The glow of the fire giant's march acts as a soft amber light for the internal eye, a night light for the soul. It provides just enough illumination to see the path toward sleep without being bright enough to wake the senses. It is the color of a dying hearth, the deep orange of a sunset that refuses to leave. In this warm, dim light, the mind can finally let go of its vigilance. The world is being simplified by the flame, reduced to its most basic elements, and your consciousness is being invited to do the same, shedding its complexities for the simple warmth of the dark.
The fire giants reach the threshold of the celestial realm, their colossal weight pressing upon the foundations of the Rainbow Bridge, Bifrost. This is not a structure of stone or steel, but a metaphysical conduit woven from the very essence of light, water, and ancient enchantment. For eons, it has stood as a shimmering arc of impossible beauty, a bridge that allowed the gods to descend to Midgard and return to their golden halls with the speed of a thought. But the bridge was never designed to sustain the thermodynamic pressure of Muspelheim's core,
nor the heavy rhythmic tread of an army made of living lava and soot. As the first of the giants sets foot upon the crystalline surface, the bridge begins to vibrate with a high-pitched harmonic hum that resonates through the atmosphere of the 9 realms. The colors of the rainbow, the deep violets, the vibrant indigos, and the searing reds begin to bleed into one another, losing their distinct borders as the magic starts to liquefy under the heat. It is a visual dissolution of the order of the universe, a melting of the spectrum into a singular, blinding white light that pulses with a slow, agonizing frequency. The bridge is no longer a path, it is a dying star stretched across the abyss. With a sound like breaking glass magnified 1,000,000 times, a sonic boom that shatters the silence of the Fimbulwinter, the Bifrost finally shatters. It does not simply collapse, it explodes into 1,000,000,000,000 prismatic shards, each one a fragment of the light that once held the worlds together. The explosion is a slow-motion cascade of color, a rain of celestial debris that falls into the great void of Ginnungagap below. To imagine this sound in the story is to experience a total release of the structural tension within your own mind, a sudden, clean break from the bridges that connect you to the stresses of your waking life. Shards of red, blue, and gold rain down into the darkness, casting flickering, kaleidoscopic shadows against the rising mist of the poisoned tides. These shards are the remnants of the old connectivity, the shattered links between the human and the divine, the mundane and the magical. As they fall, they hiss against the cold air, turning the sky into a swirling nebula of colored steam. This visual chaos acts as a powerful hypnotic, a shifting pattern of light and shadow that allows the eyes to lose their focus and the brain to enter a state of deep theta wave relaxation. The shattering of the bridge severs the path to the home of the gods, signaling that the sanctuary of Asgard is no longer unreachable or protected. The isolation of the realms is now absolute. Each world is left to face the end on its own terms, without the hope of divine intervention or escape. In the sanctuary of your rest, this severing is a profound gift. It represents the final cutting of the cords to the outside world. There is no longer a bridge to your responsibilities, no path back to the worries of the day, and no way for the noise of the land to reach the quiet island of your bed. There is a strange, weightless silence that follows the collapse of the bridge. The air, which was once filled with the humming of the rainbow, becomes void and still. The white noise of the shattering settles into a low, atmospheric hiss, the sound of the universe losing its grip on the light. This sound acts as a soft, heavy blanket for the hearing, a muffling layer that ensures no external sound can disturb the internal peace of the narrative. You are floating in a realm without bridges, a space where the only direction is down into the deep, soft center of your rest. The fire giants do not stop to watch the destruction. They simply continue their march over the jagged remains of the foundation, their fiery forms silhouetted against the dark sky. Their movements are slow, deliberate, and rhythmic, a steady thud and crackle that serves as the heartbeat of the chapter. To watch them from the safety of the story is to see the inevitable movement of time, a force that breaks even the most beautiful structures to make way for the new. You are safe in the observation, a passenger in a world where the old paths are being cleared away to create a vast open space for your dreams. The colors of the fallen bridge linger in the mist like a faint, multicolored aurora. providing a soft, chromatic glow for the internal eye. This afterimage of the rainbow is a soothing, low-intensity light that guides the mind toward a state of dreamlike wandering. It is the color of a fading memory, the soft glow of a candle seen through closed eyelids. In this dim, shifting light, the boundaries of your physical self begin to blur, merging with the shadows of the room and the textures of the blankets, until you are simply a part of the quiet, dark expanse.
Heimdall, the ever-vigilant sentry whose ears could hear the wool growing on sheep and the grass pushing through the soil, stands at the precipice of the ruin. He looks out over the shattered Bifrost and the advancing walls of fire and ice, his golden armor reflecting the bruised, dying light of the heavens. He knows that his watch, which has lasted since the dawn of the Aesir, is reaching its final, momentous heartbeat. There is no panic in his movements, only the heavy, rhythmic grace of a divine servant fulfilling a contract written in the stars. He reaches for the Gjallarhorn, the yelling horn, which has hung silent at his side for an eternity, waiting for this singular, terminal breath. He lifts the horn to his lips, a movement so slow and deliberate that it seems to draw the very air out of the surrounding realms. As he inhales, the atmosphere of Asgard grows thin and cold, the wind itself rushing into the bell of the instrument. This is the gathering of the cosmic breath, a consolidation of all the stories, all the wars, and all the silences of the 9 realms into a single pressurized moment. To imagine this intake of breath is to feel a profound expansion within your own chest, a deep cleansing inhalation that prepares the spirit for a total, resonant release of the day's burdens. He exhales, and a final, earth-shattering blast erupts from the horn. It is not a scream or a screech, but a deep, resonant note that vibrates in the marrow of every living thing. It is a frequency that exists below the level of sound and above the level of thought, a fundamental C-prime of the universe that realigns the atoms of the world. The note travels through the roots of Yggdrasil like a pulse of liquid gold, a vibration that ignores the barriers of stone, water, and flesh. It is a sound that signifies the end of the wait, the final amen to the prayer of the old world. The sound travels through the 9 realms with a rhythmic, pulsing intensity, echoing in the halls of Valhalla, where the warriors stir in their sleep, and in the deep caves where the dwarves cease their hammering. It is a call that bypasses the ears and speaks directly to the soul, a vibration that says, "The time has come." In the sanctuary of your rest, let this great note be the sound that vibrates the tension out of your muscles. Imagine the frequency of the Gjallarhorn washing over you like a warm, heavy wave, shaking loose the last stubborn knots of stress and leaving your body as resonant and hollow as the horn itself. There is a strange, paradoxical peace within the blast of the Gjallarhorn. Because the sound is so vast and all-encompassing, it creates a white noise of the divine, a sonic shield that drowns out the internal chatter of the ego. In the presence of this note, the small worries of the individual life, the lists, the regrets, the plans, are rendered silent by the sheer scale of the cosmic transition. You are no longer a person trying to sleep. You are a part of the resonance of the universe, a single string vibrating in harmony with the final chord of the legend. The sound begins to evolve, shifting from a sharp warning into a long, low-frequency hum that mirrors the Om of the beginning of time. This fading resonance acts as a powerful hypnotic, a steady and reliable drone that guides the brain toward the deep, slow waves of a restorative slumber. It is the sound of the universe exhaling, a long, slow sigh that carries the weight of the eons.
To follow this sound is to descend a long, spiraling staircase of shadow, moving further away from the surface of the world and closer to the center of the dark. Heimdall lowers the horn, his task complete, as the last echoes of the blast ripple across the poisoned tides and the burning plains. The silence that follows is not an empty thing, but a heavy silence, a space that has been cleared of the noise of the past and is now waiting for the final movement of the end. This silence is your ultimate sanctuary. It is a quiet that has been earned by the resonance of the call, a pristine and undisturbed territory where you can finally lay down the armor of your own vigilance and surrender to the gravity of the night. The Gjallarhorn's call is the final lock being turned in the door of the day. It is the signal that the boundaries have been set and the players have been summoned. You are tucked away in the echoes of the horn, safe in the knowledge that the great work of the end is being handled by forces far larger than yourself. There is nothing left for you to guard, nothing left for you to hear, and nothing left for you to do. The warning has been given, the resonance is fading, and the path to a deep restorative sleep is now a silent, open gateway.
Vigrid is a vast, desolate plain that stretches 100 leagues in every direction, a landscape carved from the very concept of finality. This is not a place of hills, valleys, or hiding spots, but a flat, unyielding expanse of gray earth and ancient dust that has waited since the dawn of time to host this singular meeting. It is an arena of absolute scale, where the horizon feels distant yet intimate, a circular stage where the drama of the cosmos reaches its terminal velocity. The ground is hard and cold, yet it hums with the phantom vibrations of the events that have led to this moment, the snapping of chains, the rising of tides, and the shattering of bridges. On one side of the plain, the forces of chaos and the ancient shadows begin to coalesce. The giants of frost and fire, once separated by the entire architecture of the 9 realms, now stand shoulder to shoulder, their breaths creating a swirling vortex of steam and ash. Behind them, the pale, hollow-eyed spirits from the Ship of Nails gather in a silent, shivering mass, their presence turning the air into a thick, supernatural fog. This is the gathering of the forgotten, the repressed, and the elemental, the raw, unbridled energy of a universe that is tired of being ordered and is ready to return to the primal dark. Opposing them, the Aesir, the Vanir, and the noble Einherjar form a wall of radiant, disciplined light. The warriors of Valhalla, who have spent an eternity of afternoons training for this specific hour, stand with a stillness that is more terrifying than any war cry. Their armor glints with a cold silver light, reflecting the bruised purple sky of the permanent twilight. This is the gathering of the architects, the guardians, and the heroes, the forces that have held the stars in their places and the rivers in their beds. They are the personification of the will, standing firm against the encroaching void. The air between the two armies is thick with the scent of ozone, salt sea, and wood smoke, creating a heavy, atmospheric soup that hangs motionless in the starless night. This is a zone of total sensory saturation, where the smell of the end is as tangible as the ground beneath one's feet. To imagine yourself standing in the center of Vigrid is to experience a state of profound midpoint balance. You are caught between the fire and the ice, the light and the dark, in a space where the opposing forces of the universe cancel each other out, leaving behind a vacuum of absolute, expectant silence.
It is a place of absolute stillness before the storm, a silent arena where the heartbeat of the world seems to pause. There is no wind here, for the wind has retreated to the corners of the realms to watch. There is no bird song, for the birds have long since fallen into their catatonic sleep. The only sound is the collective, rhythmic breathing of the millions gathered, a slow, oceanic surge of breath that acts as a powerful hypnotic metronome for the mind. This great breath of the battlefield is a sedative for the ego, a reminder that you are part of a much larger, slower movement of time. To watch the gathering at Vigrid from the sanctuary of your bed is to experience the safety of the witness. You are the observer of the grandest scale, tucked away in the shadows of the narrative, where the conflict cannot reach you. The plane of Vigrid is a mental space where you can place all the conflicting thoughts of your day, the chaos of your worries, and the order of your plans, and let them face one each other on neutral ground. By externalizing these tensions into the story, you allow your physical form to remain in a state of pure, uncomplicated relaxation. The scale of the plane acts as a decluttering agent for the soul. In the face of 100-league expanse, the small, sharp details of a single human life are rendered beautifully insignificant. The Vigrid of your mind is a place of total simplification, a blank slate where the complexities of the modern world are erased by the vastness of the gray dust. There is a profound relief in this scale, a sense of letting go of the micro to merge with the macro. You are no longer responsible for the details. You are merely a guest in the vast, quiet house of the legend. The silence of the gathering is a heavy silence, a pressurized quiet that prepares the spirit for a total surrender. It is the silence of a theater just before the curtain rises, or the silence of the woods just before the snow falls. In this quietude, the frantic pace of the internal monologue slows to a crawl, eventually matching the stillness of the warriors on the plain. The world is waiting, the lines are drawn, and the air is charged with a static that numbs the senses and invites a deep theta wave descent into the dark.
Odin, the All-Father, the seeker of runes and the architect of the 9 realms, does not rush into the fray with the frantic energy of a younger king. He understands that the gears of the end were set in motion long before his own birth, and that his role is not to stop the inevitable, but to meet it with the dignity of absolute understanding. He turns his back on the silver forest of spears at Vigrid and journeys one last time to the shadowed edge of the world, where the roots of Yggdrasil dip into the cold, dark waters of the well of Mimir. It is a journey of quiet, rhythmic footsteps, a solitary pilgrimage to the source of the very wisdom that cost him his eye so many ages ago. He speaks in low, hushed tones to the severed head of Mimir, the wise one whose consciousness remains tethered to the primordial depths of the well. The sound of Odin's voice is a dry, melodic rasp, like the rustle of ancient parchment or the wind moving through a field of dead grass. He is not asking for a miracle or a secret weapon. He is seeking a hidden path through the darkness, a way to ensure that the spark of life survives the coming fire. To listen to this conversation in the story is to experience a state of profound, intimate reflection, a quiet inner room of the mind where the noise of the battlefield cannot reach. The well is silent, its surface as dark and unmoving as polished obsidian. Mimir's wisdom is no longer a matter of words or riddles, but a state of being, a deep subsonic frequency that vibrates through the water and into the All-Father's very bones. The advice he receives is a confirmation of the great law, that for anything to be truly reborn, it must first be completely unmade. It is the wisdom of the seed in the winter soil, the logic of the star that must collapse to create the nebula. This realization acts as a powerful sedative for the spirit, a reminder that the ending of your day is merely the preparation for a new beginning. Odin nods slowly, his single eye reflecting the gray, starless sky like a lonely beacon in a vast ocean of shadow. He accepts the silence of the well not as a defeat, but as a final sacred instruction. There is a deep, rhythmic peace in this acceptance, a letting go of the struggle to control the narrative. In the sanctuary of your rest, let Odin's nod be your own permission to cease the internal argument with the day. Like the All-Father, you have sought your answers, you have done your work, and now you are permitted to accept the stillness as the only wisdom that remains. The atmosphere around the well is thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient wood, a grounding and heavy aroma that invites the body to sink deeper into the mattress. This is the 0 point of the legend, a place of total neutrality where the past and the future meet in a singular, quiet moment. To imagine yourself sitting beside Odin at the edge of the well is to experience a state of absolute safety. You are at the very root of the world, protected by the massive bulk of Yggdrasil and the deep, dark waters of the past. The chaos above is a distant dream. The peace below is the only reality. The All-Father stands and turns back toward his people, his blue cloak billowing behind him like a fragment of the midnight sky. He does not carry the weight of worry anymore. He carries the calm resolve of a king who has seen the end of the book and found that the final page is not blank. His march back to Vigrid is a rhythmic, steady cadence, a thump and sigh of boots on the gray dust that acts as a heartbeat for the chapter. He is the personification of the steady hand, the part of your own consciousness that knows exactly how to navigate the transition into sleep. As he rejoins the Aesir, his presence brings a temporary cooling light to the darkened plains. He does not offer a speech of fire and fury, but a look of profound, silent encouragement. He is the elder who knows that the night is necessary for the dawn. In the presence of this divine composure, the frantic thoughts of the warriors and the frantic thoughts of your own mind begin to settle like dust after a storm. You are being guided by the highest wisdom of the realms, a wisdom that says, "Rest now, for the work of the day is done, and the work of the dream is about to begin." The silence of the All-Father is a vocal silence, a quiet that speaks of endurance and the beauty of the cycle. It is the silence of a library, a church, or a deep forest, a space where the ego is dwarfed by the scale of the surroundings. To inhabit this silence is to experience a total relaxation of the mental muscles. You no longer need to explain, to justify, or to plan. You are merely a part of the All-Father's counsel, a silent witness to the dignity of the end. The well is quiet, the king is ready, and the air is heavy with the scent of the deep, dark roots.
The 540 doors of Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, swing open simultaneously with a sound like a low, rolling peal of thunder across a summer sky. From each of these massive portals, which have stood as the threshold between glory and the mundane for an eternity, 800 warriors march out shoulder to shoulder. These are the Einherjar, the noble dead, those who were hand-picked from the battlefields of Midgard by the Valkyries and brought to the golden halls to feast and train for this singular terminal hour. They do not emerge with the frantic, fearful energy of the living, but with the heavy, rhythmic grace of those who have already conquered death and are now stepping forth to fulfill their final sacred obligation. Their armor glints with a cold silver light that seems to emanate from within the metal itself, reflecting the bruised purple sky of the permanent twilight. This is the light of 1,000 years of purpose, a steady and unwavering glow that provides a path through the encroaching mists of the Fimbulwinter. As they move, their spears form a dense, unyielding forest of steel, a canopy of points that sways with a hypnotic, oceanic rhythm. To imagine this silver forest in the story is to experience a state of profound collective strength, a sense of being part of an ancient and unbreakable line that stretches back to the first dawn of the world. They march with a rhythmic, heavy tread that shakes the very foundations of the great hall, a thump and echo cadence that acts as a powerful, grounding metronome for the mind. Each step is a synchronization of millions of souls, a singular heartbeat that resonates through the air of Asgard and down into the roots of Yggdrasil. This repetitive, percussive sound is a brown noise for the spirit, a sound that masks the erratic, sharp noises of the modern world and pulls your own heartbeat into a slow, resting frequency. The march is not a call to war in this sanctuary. It is a call to a deep, disciplined stillness. As the Einherjar leave the golden halls, the warmth of the eternal feast begins to fade behind them, replaced by the cool, crisp air of the final battlefield. They carry with them the scent of seasoned oak, roasted meats, and ancient honey, the comforting, nostalgic aromas of a home that is being left behind for the last time. These scents linger in the wake of the army, a heavy and soothing fragrance that invites the body to relax and the mind to wander. To inhabit this aroma is to feel the safety of the hearth, even as the world moves toward its conclusion, a reminder that the essence of peace remains even when the structures fall. The sea of heroes moves as a single, fluid organism, their movements directed by a silent, internal harmony that requires no commands or shouts. There is no ego in this march, no individual struggle for recognition. There is only the collective will of the chosen, a force of nature that moves towards Vigrid with the inevitability of a glacier. In the sanctuary of your rest, let this loss of the individual represent the quietening of your own ego. You are no longer the protagonist of the day's worries. You are merely a part of the grand, silver tide of the legend, drifting toward a destination that is both certain and safe. The Einherjar do not look back at the golden doors or the empty tables of the hall. Their focus is forward, fixed on the gray horizon where the giants wait. This total commitment to the now is a powerful instruction for the spirit. By focusing on the rhythmic thud of the march and the glint of the silver spears, the mind is prevented from wandering back to the regrets of the past or forward to the anxieties of the future. You are anchored in the present moment of the story, a space where the only task is to listen to the steady, heavy heartbeat of the army. There is a profound, quiet dignity to this final debt-paying. The warriors of Valhalla are not victims of the apocalypse. They are the participants in a necessary cycle, the old guard making way for the new. To watch them from the safety of your bed is to see the beauty of a task completed
and a life fulfilled. Their march is a lullaby of iron and silver, a rhythmic clashing of shields that sounds like a distant metallic tide. It is a sound that builds a wall around your sanctuary, a barrier of steel that ensures no external distraction can breach the peace of the narrative. As the army reaches the edge of the Great Plain, the sound of their marching begins to smooth out into a long, low-frequency hum. The sea of heroes has found its position, and the movement has become a state of standing resonance. You are floating in the wake of this army, tucked into the shadows of their silver shields. The weight of their armor is a grounding force for your own physical form, a heavy protection that anchors you to the mattress. The hall is empty, the march is over, and the plain is full of a silent, expectant light.
The gods themselves ride out from the ruins of Asgard, a radiant procession of power that cuts through the encroaching gloom of the Fimbulwinter like a final, defiant dawn. They do not emerge with the frantic desperation of those who fear the end, but with the measured, gravitational grace of the architects of existence. Leading them is Odin, the All-Father, mounted upon Sleipnir, his eight-legged steed, whose hooves strike the gray dust of Vigrid with a rhythmic, complex cadence, a drumbeat of the divine that resonates through the very substrate of the 9 realms. Odin is draped in a cloak of deep, atmospheric blue, a garment that seems to hold the essence of every midnight that has ever graced the world, and his golden helmet catches the faint, bruised light of the horizon, a solitary beacon of order in a landscape of rising chaos. Beside the All-Father ride the titans of legend, Thor, Tyr, and Freyr, each a pillar of the old world's strength. They do not look like victims of a tragic fate, but like masters of a necessary conclusion, their presence bringing a temporary cooling light to the darkened plains. Thor grips the handle of Mjolnir with a calm intensity, the silver lightning of his aura flickering with a slow, hypnotic pulse that illuminates the faces of the gathered Einherjar. This divine radiance is not a harsh, blinding glare, but a soft, shimmering luminescence, like the glow of bioluminescent waters or the first light of a winter morning. To imagine this light in the story is to feel a profound sense of celestial shelter, a warmth that penetrates the skin and settles deep within the marrow of the spirit. There is a deep subsonic thrumming that accompanies the charge, the sound of divine will moving across the physical plane. It is a low-frequency vibration that acts as a powerful anchor for the senses, pulling your focus away from the erratic static of the modern mind and into the heavy, grounded reality of the myth. This thrum of the gods is a sedative for the ego, a reminder that the forces governing the transition are far larger and steadier than the individual life. As you lie in the safety of your bed, let this divine vibration settle into your bones, inviting your muscles to go limp and your breath to synchronize with the slow, rhythmic gallop of the celestial steeds. The movement of the Aesir is a study in fluid power, a charge that feels less like a collision and more like a tide reclaiming the shore. There is no shouting, no chaotic clamor. There is only the rhythmic thump and hiss of the horse's breath and the silver clashing of divine mail. This repetitive, mechanical soundscape creates a white noise for the soul, a protective barrier that ensures no external distraction can breach the sanctuary of the narrative. You are watching the grandest movement of the cosmos
from a place of absolute detached safety, a passenger in a world where the old guardians are taking their final, magnificent positions. Odin's blue cloak billows behind him, expanding to cover the perspective of the story until it becomes the sky itself. In this vast indigo expanse, the sharp worries of your day are dissolved like salt in a deep ocean. The Asgard of your waking life, your ambitions, your structures, and your pride is being left behind for a more profound, elemental truth. There is a strange, quiet freedom in watching the gods leave their palaces. It is a permission for you to leave the palace of your own thoughts and wander into the boundless, quiet territory of the dream. The charge of the gods acts as a clearing of the air, a movement that pushes back the toxic mists of the serpent and the searing heat of the fire giants. In the wake of their passage, the atmosphere of Vigrid becomes crisp, cool, and clear, a perfect breathing space for the spirit. To imagine yourself within this wake is to experience a state of total respiratory relief, a deep and effortless inhalation of the ancient, sacred air. The world is being simplified by the presence of the divine, reduced to its most basic elements of courage, light, and shadow, providing a minimalist landscape for your mind to settle. There is a deep, rhythmic dignity to the way the gods face their ancient shadows. They move with the confidence of those who have already seen the end of the book and found that the final page is a beginning. This certainty of the end is a powerful sedative for the restless mind. By externalizing the conflict into the charge of the Aesir, you allow your own internal conflicts to find their resolution in the story. You no longer need to fight the night. The gods are handling the transition, and your only task is to remain still and listen to the fading heartbeat of the charge. As the gods reach the center of the plain, the sound of their gallop begins to smooth out into a long, low-frequency hum. The radiant procession has found its final line, and the movement has transitioned into a state of standing resonance. You are floating in the shadows cast by the divine light, tucked into the velvet folds of the All-Father. The weight of the legend is a grounding force for your own physical form, a heavy protection that anchors you to the mattress. The charge is over, the line is set, and the plain is full of a silent, expectant light.
Odin, the All-Father, singles out his destiny upon the gray, shifting sands of Vigrid, the wolf Fenrir. There is no hesitation in the old king's heart, only the heavy, rhythmic calibration of a mind that has contemplated this specific encounter for an eternity of winters. He levels his spear, Gungnir, a weapon forged from the sunlight of the first morning and etched with runes that hum with a low vibrational frequency. The spear does not miss. It is an extension of the cosmic law, a physical manifestation of the mark. As Odin urges Sleipnir forward, the 8 hooves of the steed create a complex, percussive cadence that sounds like a heartbeat echoing through a hollow mountain, a steady thrum, thrum that grounds the wandering spirit. He charges toward the towering beast, whose physical presence has become a mountain of matted dark fur and ancient icy shadow. Fenrir's breath is a foul wind of decay and soot, a rhythmic exhalation that smells of the void and the end of all things. To imagine this approach in the story is to experience the magnetic pull of a foretold conclusion. The air between the god and the wolf
is thick with a static charge, a heavy tension that makes the skin tingle and the breath grow slow and shallow. It is a moment of absolute focus where the entire universe seems to narrow down to a single point of silver light against a vast, hungry dark. The spear Gungnir flashes in the dim light of the dying world, striking with the weight of 1,000 storms concentrated into a singular, silent point of contact. There is no metallic clang, but a deep, resonant thud that vibrates through the substrate of the 9 realms. It is the sound of wisdom meeting hunger, of the architect meeting the void. This sound acts as a powerful sonic anchor for the mind, a heavy and reliable pulse that masks the frantic noise of the day. In the sanctuary of your rest, let this resonance be the force that pushes the last of your internal chatter into the distance, leaving your consciousness as focused and still as the tip of the All-Father's spear. Fenrir is a force of nature that cannot be deterred by the traditional logic of war. He is the personification of the unbound, a primal energy that seeks to reclaim the order of the gods. As he snaps at the silver light, his jaws create a rhythmic clash that sounds like tectonic plates shifting in the deep earth. This repetitive, heavy, mechanical soundscape creates a white noise for the soul, a protective barrier that ensures no external distraction can breach the sanctuary of the narrative. You are watching the ultimate conflict from a place of absolute, detached safety, a guest in a world where the old guardians are facing the shadows so that you may find your peace. The struggle is a clash of ancient wisdom against primal hunger, a battle that vibrates through the very fabric of the 9 realms. Each movement of the god and the wolf is a slow-motion dance of gravity and light. Odin's blue cloak flutters in the wind of the wolf's breath, a rhythmic flapping that sounds like the wings of a great bird. This sound provides a steady, atmospheric backdrop for the spirit, a soft noise that invites the body to go limp and the mind to enter a state of deep, dream-like wandering. The conflict is far away, a legend playing out on the horizon of your consciousness, while you remain tucked into the warm furs of the bed. To witness this battle in your mind is to experience a vicarious release of the internal predator. Just as Odin faces the wolf, you are permitted to face the shadows of your own day, the doubts, the stresses, and the hungers, and see them transformed into the imagery of the myth. By externalizing these tensions into the struggle on Vigrid, you allow your physical form to remain in a state of pure, uncomplicated relaxation. The wolf of your worries is being engaged by the spear of the story, leaving you free to drift on the tide of the rhythmic narration. There is a profound, quiet dignity to Odin's resolve. He does not shout or cry out. He meets the wolf with the silence of a stone. This divine composure is a powerful sedative for the restless mind. It suggests that even in the face of the ultimate end, there is a place for stillness and grace. As you lie perfectly still, let Odin's silence become your own. Feel the weight of the blankets as a divine armor that protects you from the cold winds of the world, a heavy and soft foundation that remains unmoving while the legend unfolds around you. The light of Gungnir begins to pulse with a slow, rhythmic frequency, a heartbeat of gold that illuminates the gray dust of the plain. This light provides just enough visual stimulus for the internal eye to remain focused without being bright enough to wake the senses. It is the color of a dying star or a glowing ember,
a soft and fading luminescence that guides the mind toward the deep, slow waves of a restorative slumber. In this dim, shifting light, the boundaries of your physical self begin to blur, merging with the shadows of the room and the textures of the narrative.
In a moment that seems to stop the very gears of time, the great architect of the 9 realms is finally overcome. There is no sudden scream, no clashing of steel, but a heavy, absolute silence that descends like a physical weight upon the gray plains of Vigrid. Fenrir's massive jaws, stretching from the floor of the world to the ceiling of the void, snap shut with the finality of a tomb door. In that singular, rhythmic pulse of shadow, the All-Father is gone, swallowed by the very chaos he spent an eternity trying to order. It is a transition so profound that the air itself seems to lose its vibration, leaving a vacuum where the heartbeat of a god once resonated through the marrow of the world. The wisdom of the ages, the seeker of the secret runes, and the king who hung from the world tree to learn the mysteries of life, falls into the dark. With his passing, the collective memory of the Aesir feels a sharp, cold severing, as if a library of 1 billion books has been burned in a single breath. To imagine this loss in the story is to experience a total release of the burden of knowing. As Odin vanishes, let the weight of your own responsibilities, the need to solve, to remember, and to lead, vanish with him. You are no longer the architect of your own world. You are merely a witness to the silence that follows the fall of a king. A heavy, suffocating silence descends over the battlefield for a heartbeat, as if the universe itself is holding its breath in mourning for its creator. This is not an empty quiet, but a dense silence, a soundless pressure that mutes the cries of the giants and the clashing of the Einherjar. It is a moment of total cosmic stasis, a pause in the narrative that allows the soul to catch up with the speed of the end. In the sanctuary of your rest, let this great pause be the moment where your mind goes completely still. There is no longer a story to follow, no hero to cheer for, and no enemy to fear. There is only the rhythmic, quiet pulse of the void. The golden helmet of the All-Father rolls into the gray dust of Vigrid, a solitary metallic ring that echoes once and then fades into the stillness. This crown, which once symbolized the highest authority in the cosmos, is now just a hollow shell, a fragment of gold returning to the earth. To watch the crown fall is to see the ultimate simplification of reality. The titles, the honors, and the structures of the waking world are being stripped away, leaving only the essential, quiet self. You are lying in the dust of the legend, unburdened by the gold of your day, as light and as simple as a falling leaf. The light of Asgard, which has flickered with a divine radiance since the dawn of time, begins to dim and fail as its heart stops beating. The golden palaces in the distance lose their luster, turning to the color of cold ash and stagnant shadow. Without Odin to sustain the dream of the celestial city, the dream begins to dissolve, returning to the primordial mist of Ginnungagap. This fading light provides a perfect visual guide for the internal eye, a slow fade to black that encourages the brain to enter the deepest stages of sleep.
The world is darkening, the fires are cooling, and the path to the center of the night is now the only direction left. The Einharjar stand frozen, their silver spears lowered as they absorb the reality of the All-Father's end. Their collective grief is not a loud lamentation, but a slow, rhythmic heaving of the chest, a sea of breath that acts as a powerful hypnotic for the wandering mind. This ocean of mourning is a sedative for the ego, a reminder that even the greatest entities must eventually find their rest. As you listen to the imaginary breathing of the army, let your own breath become just as slow and just as heavy. You are part of the great, quiet circle of the slain, finding peace in the absence of the king. There is a profound, dark beauty in the death of the All-Father. It represents the finality of the old cycle and the absolute necessity of the clearing. By externalizing the end of the god into the narrative, you are permitted to die to the day, to let the version of yourself that worked, worried, and planned be swallowed by the shadows of the story. You are being reborn into the silence of the night, a blank slate that requires no identity and no effort. The king has fallen so that you may sleep. The sacrifice has been made, and the sanctuary of the dark is now yours to inhabit. The air on Vigrid becomes impossibly still, the scent of ozone and iron replaced by the smell of cold earth and ancient undisturbed dust. This grounding aroma acts as a sensory anchor, pulling your consciousness deeper into the physical reality of the bed. You are tucked into a hollow of the plain, protected by the very silence that has claimed the All-Father. The chaos of the battle has become a distant, muffled hum, a white noise that ensures no sharp thought can breach the peace of your rest. You are safe in the vacuum of the end, a quiet spark in a world that has stopped moving.
But the silence that follows the All-Father's fall is not the end. It is broken by the deliberate rhythmic approach of the silent god. Vidar, Odin's son, steps forward from the ranks of the Aesir, a figure of profound and focused intensity who has prepared for this singular moment since the dawn of his immortal life. He is the personification of unspoken strength, a deity who has gathered his power in the quiet places of the world, away from the songs of the halls and the clamor of the forge. His movement across the gray dust of Vigrid is as steady and inevitable as the shifting of a tectonic plate, a slow, heavy cadence of footfalls that resonates with the deep, grounding frequency of the earth itself. He wears upon his foot a boot unlike any other in the Nine Realms, a legendary artifact crafted from the discarded leather scraps of every shoe ever made since humanity first walked the earth. These remnants, the heels and toes trimmed away by generations of cobblers, have been woven together into a thick, indestructible soul that carries the collective weight of every human journey. To imagine the texture of this boot in the story is to feel a profound connection to the physical world, a heavy sensory anchor that pulls your consciousness down into the sturdy reality of the mattress. It is the weight of history and persistence, a literal grounding force that anchors the spirit against the winds of chaos. Vidar reaches the great wolf, whose jaws are still slick with the shadow of the All-Father, and places this miraculous boot upon Fenrir's lower jaw. There is no shout of challenge, no theatrical display of grief. there is only the rhythmic, silent application of an irresistible pressure. The god's strength is not a sudden burst, but a constant expanding force, a slow-motion lever that begins to pry the mouth of the void back toward the earth. This mechanical, steady resistance acts as a powerful hypnotic for the mind, a low-gear effort that encourages your own physical form to go completely limp and heavy, surrendering its tension to the gravity of the bed. With his hands, Vidar reaches up to grasp the wolf's upper jaw, his fingers digging into the matted dark fur of the beast's snout. The contrast between the silent god and the snarling predator creates a vivid, stable image for the internal eye, a tableau of absolute resolve against absolute hunger. The struggle is played out in a vacuum of sound, the only noise being the internal groaning of the wolf's ancient bones and the rhythmic, deep breathing of the god. This silence is a protective barrier for the soul, a quiet space where the clutter of the day's internal monologue is suppressed by the sheer scale of the divine labor. With the strength of a son's grief and the patience of 1,000 years of silence, Vidar tears the wolf's throat asunder. It is a moment of total visceral reclamation, a resetting of the cosmic balance that ends the terror of the great wolf forever. The predator that consumed the sun and the king is itself consumed by the vengeance of the quiet ones. To witness this in the sanctuary of your rest is to experience the taming of the wild. Let the death of the wolf represent the final silencing of your own restless anxieties. The beast that pursued your thoughts throughout the day has finally been met and mastered by the silent strength of the narrative. As Fenrir falls, a new kind of silence settles over Vigrid, a silence of relief rather than mourning. The high-frequency tension of the hunt has been resolved into a low-frequency hum of completion. Vidar stands over the fallen beast, his task finished, his breath a slow and steady oceanic surge that matches the rhythm of a resting heart. This rhythmic breathing becomes the metronome of the chapter, a soothing and reliable pulse that guides your own breath into a deeper, slower cadence. The world is safe again, not because the end has been stopped, but because the darkness has been given its own boundaries.
High above the gray, shifting sands of Vigrid, the sky itself is torn asunder by a celestial conflict that dwarfs the struggle on the ground. Thor, the prince of Asgard and the protector of Midgard, finally meets his ancient nemesis, Jörmungandr, the world serpent. The beast has fully uncoiled its planetary length, its massive, scale-armored body blotting out the stars and turning the horizon into a jagged, writhing mountain of toxic green and obsidian black. Thor does not approach with a shout, but with the heavy, rhythmic breathing of a warrior who has rehearsed this final movement in every lightning strike and every summer storm since the beginning of time. He grips Mjolnir, the mountain crusher, with a white-knuckled resolve that causes the silver veins of the hammer to pulse with a low vibrational hum. As the god steps forward, the air around him ionizes, creating a thick, sweet scent of ozone that cuts through the serpent's foul, sulfuric breath. This atmospheric tension acts as a sensory shield, a heavy and pressurized white noise that mutes the distant clashing of the armies. To imagine this ozone-rich air is to feel a cooling, expansive sensation in the lungs, a deep, effortless inhalation that prepares the physical body for a total, grounded surrender. The serpent strikes with the speed of a falling star, its cavernous maw dripping with a black, corrosive venom that hisses as it strikes the frozen earth. Thor meets the charge with a rhythmic, thunderous swing of his hammer, a movement so powerful that it creates a localized vacuum in the air. The sound of Mjolnir striking the serpent's skull is not a sharp crack, but a deep, tectonic thud that resonates in the core of the earth. This repetitive, percussive cadence, the strike and hiss of the duel, acts as a powerful, hypnotic metronome, a steady beat that pulls your heartbeat into a slow, resting frequency. Jörmungandr undulates in a slow-motion wave of muscle and scale, its movements directed by a primal, liquid grace that ignores the friction of the world. Each coil of the serpent is a mile-long arc of shadow, a rhythmic pulse that mirrors the heavy, oceanic heaving of a world in transition. To watch this movement from the sanctuary of your bed is to experience the safety of the witness. You are the observer of the grandest scale, tucked away in the shadows where the venom cannot reach. The serpent is the unending loop of your day's worries, and Thor is the shattering strike that finally breaks the cycle. With a final explosive surge of divine strength, Thor raises his hammer one last time and brings it down with the collective weight of the 9 realms. The serpent's skull shatters, and the great loop of the world is broken. The beast collapses into the rising tides with a sound like a mountain range falling into the sea, a slow and thunderous descent that turns the water into a shimmering mist of spray and ancient salt. The world serpent of your stress has been neutralized, leaving behind a vast, empty expanse of calm, black water. There is a profound relief in this breaking, a sense of the circle of the day finally being opened. But the victory is a heavy one. Thor, the mighty thunderer, takes 9 slow, rhythmic steps away from the fallen beast. Each step is a monumental effort, a thud and pause that marks the final expiration of his divine energy. He has inhaled the serpent's black mist, and the venom of the end is now a part of his own blood. As he takes his 9th step, he stops, his hammer falling into the dust with a soft, final ring. He does not fall with violence. He settles into the gray earth like a tired traveler, finally reaching his home, his eyes closing as the silver lightning of his aura fades into a soft, amber glow. As the last of the gods find their rest upon the gray plains of Vigrid, the sky, once a tapestry of starfire and auroras, begins to bleed a deep, terminal crimson. This is the final movement of Surtra's march, the moment where the primordial heat of Muspelheim finally overcomes the cooling embers of the old world. The sun, which has fled across the heavens since the first dawn, is overtaken by the shadow of the great wolf's skull. But it is not a cold darkness that follows. It is a searing, absolute illumination. The sun exhales a final, monumental breath of solar fire, a wave of radiant energy that washes over the 9 realms, turning the ice of the Fimbulwinter into a thick white mist of disappearing history. The horizon is no longer a line, but a pulsating wall of amber and gold that closes in from every direction with a slow, rhythmic intensity. This heat is not a jagged or painful thing in the sanctuary of the story. It is a heavy, weighted warmth that feels like a thick woolen blanket being pulled over the shoulders of the universe. It is the great leveler, the thermal force that dissolves the sharp edges of the rubble, the jagged remains of the mountains, and the frozen iron of the armies. Everything that was solid, rigid, or stuck is being softened and turned into a fluid golden light. Surtur raises his flaming sword, the searing one, and strikes the very foundations of the earth. The sound is a deep, subsonic boom, a low-frequency hum that vibrates through the mattress and into the marrow of your bones. This is the sound of the old structures finally letting go, a rhythmic thrum and sigh that acts as a powerful sedative for the central nervous system. As the fire consumes the remaining shadows, let it represent the final burning away of your day's residual static. Every unfinished task, every lingering conversation, and every sharp worry is caught in this divine flame and turned into harmless, glowing ash. The flames do not crackle with the frantic energy of a common hearth. They move with the slow, undulating grace of a deep-sea current. It is a liquid fire that flows through the valleys and over the plains, a rhythmic pulse of light that marks the heartbeat of the ending. To watch this fire from the safety of your rest is to experience the ultimate simplification of reality. The world is being reduced to its most basic, elemental state, a single warm glow that requires no analysis, no reaction, and no defense. You are a quiet spark within this golden expanse, protected by the very heat that unmakes the world.
With the fires of Surtur finally cooling into a dull, rhythmic pulse, the very foundations of Midgard begin a slow and majestic descent. The earth, heavy with the ash of the old world and weary from the tectonic struggles of the gods, surrenders its hold on the horizon. It does not fall with the violence of a collapse, but with the graceful, inevitable sinking of a great ship into the glass calm waters of the primordial deep. The vast black ocean of Ginnungagap, which has waited since before the first dawn, rises to meet the land in a silent, liquid embrace. The water is not cold, but a temperate, pressurized dark that feels like a weightless shroud. As the tides wash over the plains of Vigrid, they move with a slow, hypnotic undulation, a rhythmic surge and settle that mirrors the deepest cadence of a resting heart. The hissing of the steam, where the last embers of the fire giants meet the sea, settles into a steady, low-frequency white noise. This sound is the ultimate atmospheric stabilizer, a continuous shh that masks every residual thought and pulls the mind into a state of total sensory neutrality. The mountains, once the jagged teeth of the world, vanish beneath the surface with a muffled subsonic groan. As they go, they displace the last of the air, creating a soft, rhythmic bubbling that sounds like the breath of the earth itself. To imagine yourself floating on this rising tide is to experience the final release of gravity. Your limbs, your head, and your very thoughts are becoming buoyant, drifting on the surface of a legend that has finally found its resolution. There is no longer any ground to hold you up, and therefore no longer any need for the tension of standing. The sky and the sea merge into a singular, featureless void where direction no longer exists. There is no up to the stars and no down to the soil.
There is only the vast, cool expanse of the water. This is the great sink, the return to the womb of the universe, where all things are simplified and cleansed. In this dark, watery sanctuary, the salt of the ocean acts as a purifying agent for the spirit, washing away the grime of the day's labor and the soot of the final battle. You are being rinsed clean by the narrative, left as smooth and as quiet as a stone at the bottom of the deep. The rhythmic heaving of the great ocean acts as a cosmic cradle, rocking the remains of the 9 realms into a state of permanent stillness. This movement is so slow and so large that it is felt more as a vibration than a motion, a deep resonant thrum that anchors the body to the mattress. Feel the liquid of the story filling the room, pressing softly against your skin with a comforting, protective pressure. You are safe in the depths, hidden far beneath the reach of the wind, the sun, and the noise of the living. The light has completely vanished, replaced by a luminous dark, a blackness so deep it seems to possess its own internal glow. In this absence of form, the internal eye can finally close and rest. There is nothing left to visualize, no more warriors to watch, and no more fires to track. The theater of the mind has gone dark, the curtain has fallen, and the audience has departed. You are the only one left in the quiet, watery hall, a single spark of consciousness drifting in the vast, restorative waters of the void.
Out of the deep, black silence of the primordial waters, a new sound begins to emerge. Not the tectonic groan of a world in pain, but the soft, rhythmic lap and sigh of water receding from a fresh-born shore. The great sink has reached its nadir, and now, governed by a law older than the gods themselves, the pendulum of existence begins its slow, majestic swing back toward the light. From the lightless depths of Ginnungagap, a second earth begins to rise. It does not burst forth with violence. It ascends with the quiet, buoyant grace of a leaf floating to the surface of a still pond, its movement a long, slow-frequency vibration that anchors the spirit in a state of expectant peace. This new land is not the jagged, scarred Midgard of the old wars, but a world of absolute, unblemished green. As the waters slide away from the rising slopes, they leave behind a shimmering, fertile silt that smells of crushed grass, sweet rain, and ancient cooling stone. This grounding aroma, the scent of the beginning, is a powerful sensory sedative, a heavy and natural fragrance that fills the lungs and invites the body to settle into the mattress with a newfound density. To breathe in this new air is to experience a total respiratory reset, a deep and effortless inhalation of a world that has never known a single worry. Fields of unsown grain begin to ripple in a gentle, rhythmic wind that tastes of the salt sea and the morning mist. These stalks of gold and emerald do not need the hand of a farmer. They grow from the sheer vitality of the earth itself, swaying in a synchronized cadence that acts as a visual metronome for the internal eye. This ocean of grass is a soft, shifting landscape that blurs the sharp edges of the mind, providing a minimalist and peaceful focal point that encourages the brain to enter a state of deep alpha wave relaxation. The world is simple again, a vast and quiet garden where the only task is to exist.
high above the new mountains, which rise with smooth, rounded peaks like the shoulders of a sleeping giant. The waterfalls begin to flow once more. They do not crash with the roar of a deluge, but spill over the rocks with a silvery, melodic tinkling, a white noise of the heights that masks the last of the internal chatter. This rhythmic falling of water is the heartbeat of the new world, a steady and reliable sound that builds a protective wall around your sanctuary. You are tucked into a lush, green valley of the story, protected by the very landscape that is being born around you. The sun's daughter, born before the old sun was consumed, begins her own journey across the sky. Her light is not the searing heat of the Muspel fire, but a soft amber glow, the color of a fading hearth or the first hint of a summer dawn. This gentle illumination provides just enough light for the soul to see the beauty of the new beginning without being bright enough to disturb the heavy, restorative dark of the room. It is a twilight of the dawn, a perpetual state of soft shadows and golden mists that guides the mind toward the deepest chambers of rest. Deep within the hollows of a mountain called Hodmimir's Holt, two sparks of consciousness, Lif and Lifthlesir, begin to stir in their long protected slumber. They have been hidden in the wood of the world, sheltered from the fire and the flood by the very roots of existence. Their breathing is a slow oceanic surge that matches the rhythm of the new world's tides, a double heartbeat that signifies the survival of the spark. To imagine their quiet, safe sanctuary is to find your own. You are tucked away in the holt of your bed, hidden from the noise of the outside world and protected by the heavy, soft layers of the narrative. There is a profound, quiet optimism in the rising of the green earth. It represents the absolute certainty that peace follows the storm and that rest is the necessary soil for a new life. By inhabiting this new world in your mind, you are permitting your spirit to be reborn into the night. The old John Amos Monterola of the day's work and the YouTube channel is resting in the deep. The version of you that exists here is as fresh and as simple as the new-grown grass. You have no history here, no obligations, and no voice. You are merely a part of the green, quiet expanse. The air on the new earth is perfectly still, the only sound being the distant, rhythmic hum of the celestial gears finding their new alignment. This hum is the lullaby of the new cosmos, a frequency of absolute harmony that vibrates through the mattress and into your bones. It is a sound that requires no response, only surrender. The world has been cleansed, the stage has been reset, and the air is clear. You are floating in the mist of the new beginning, a quiet spark in a world that has found its perfect, silent center.
The final echoes of the old world have vanished into the great deep, and the new earth has found its perfect, immovable center. There are no more armies to march, no more serpents to uncoil, and no more fires to burn. The landscape is a masterpiece of absolute, rhythmic stillness, a vast, rolling expanse of silver mists and emerald shadows that stretch toward a horizon of soft, permanent amber. This is the silent rain, a state of being where the universe has finally exhaled its long cosmic breath and has chosen to remain in the quiet space that follows. A new assembly of gods, the sons of the old kings, gather upon the plain where Vigrid once stood. Vidar and Vali,
the silent and the steady, meet with Magni and Modi, the heirs to the thunder. They do not speak of the wars or the ruins. They sit in the tall, dew-heavy grass and find the golden game pieces of their fathers hidden in the soil. These small, cool artifacts are the only remnants of the struggle, and as the gods turn them over in their hands, the soft clink of the gold acts as a rhythmic, metallic lullaby for the soul. To imagine this scene is to experience the playfulness of the piece, a sense that the heavy burdens of history have been replaced by the lightness of a new, uncomplicated reality. The air in this silent kingdom is thick and cool, carrying the scent of wild thyme, ancient stone, and the deep, clean water of the newborn springs. This grounding aroma is the final seal on your sanctuary, a sensory anchor that pulls your consciousness into a state of total physical density. You are no longer a person in a room. You are a part of the Hodmir's Holt, the protected hollow where life persists in a state of dreamlike safety. The Noctoscape of your mind has become the reality of the world, a place where the only purpose is to find the deepest, most restorative rest. The daughter of the sun reaches the zenith of her path, her light softening into a deep, velvety indigo that signals the arrival of the first true night of the new era. This light is a slow fade to black that covers the green earth like a heavy silken curtain, muting the colors and softening the shapes of the mountains. In this dim, shifting atmosphere, the internal eye can finally release its hold on the world of form. There is nothing left to see, nothing left to watch, and nothing left to hear. The story has reached its final page, and the ink is as dark and as quiet as the void itself. The rhythmic hum of the new cosmos has settled into a singular, low-frequency vibration, the sound of the universe at rest. This sound is the ultimate white noise, a protective cocoon that ensures no thought of the past and no plan for the future can breach the peace of the night. You are floating in the center of this frequency, a quiet spark in a world that has finally learned how to be still. The cycle is complete, the balance is struck, and the silence is your kingdom. While the vast green plains of the new earth stretch toward the amber horizon, there is a specific sacred sanctuary that remained untouched by the fire and the flood. Hodmir's Holt, a hidden grove nestled within the very heart of the world's renewal, is a place where the air is eternally cool, silver, and still. Here the grass does not just grow, it breathes with a rhythmic, luminous life, each blade coated in a thick, prismatic dew that has never known the heat of a noonday sun. This moisture is the distilled essence of the world's memory, a pure liquid peace that beads upon the leaves like liquid diamonds, reflecting the soft indigo sky in a trillion tiny, perfect spheres. In the center of this grove, the two survivors, Lif and Lifthrasir, remain in a state of profound, suspended animation. Their forms are not made of heavy, weary clay, but of a refined, radiant substance that mirrors the texture of the morning mist. Their breathing is the only clock in the Holt, a slow, synchronized rise and fall that creates a gentle atmospheric current through the trees. This rhythmic surge of breath acts as a powerful hypnotic, a steady and reliable pulse
that invites your own lungs to find their deepest, most effortless cadence. To imagine yourself lying beside them in the silver grass is to experience a state of total molecular safety. The trees of the Holt are not the gnarled, scarred oaks of the old world, but smooth, white-barked sentinels that reach toward the heavens with a silent, fluid grace. Their leaves do not rustle with the frantic energy of a storm. They sway with a slow, oceanic motion, a rhythmic shh and sigh that provides a constant, low-frequency white noise for the spirit. This sound is a sensory blanket, a layer of acoustic protection that ensures no residual thought from the old world of your day can breach the silence of the grove. You are encased in a forest of quiet, a sanctuary where the only sound is the heartbeat of the beginning. The dew of the Holt is said to be the only sustenance the new humanity requires. It is a liquid light that tastes of honey, cold spring water, and the first breath of a spring morning. To imagine a single drop of this dew touching your tongue is to feel a cooling, restorative sensation spread through your entire body, neutralizing the heat of your stresses and the salt of your tears. This internal cooling is a powerful sedative for the nervous system, a sensation of being rinsed from the inside out by the very nectar of the myth. You are becoming as clear and as still as the water in the grove. There is a profound rhythmic stillness to the light in Hodmimir's Holt. It does not shift with the passing of hours, for time in the Holt is a circular, eternal present. The amber glow of the new sun filters through the white branches in steady, unwavering beams, creating a pattern of soft shadows and golden pools upon the mossy floor. This visual stability is a gift for the internal eye. It is a landscape that requires no scanning, no vigilance, and no analysis. It is a fixed point in the universe where you can finally allow your focus to dissolve into a state of dreamlike wandering. The ground beneath the survivors is a deep, springy bed of ancient moss, a texture so soft and so yielding that it seems to absorb the very weight of the body. As you lie in your own bed, feel the mattress transform into the moss of the Holt. You are sinking into the memory of the earth, a foundation that has been prepared for 1,000 years to hold you in this specific moment of rest. The weight of your limbs is a grounding force, a heavy surrender to the gravity of the grove. You are anchored to the beginning, protected by the roots and nourished by the dew.
For ages, the sky of the apocalypse was a bruised, starless void, a ceiling of soot and smoke that choked the light of the heavens. But as the mists of the Great Sink settle into the newborn oceans, the atmosphere of the rising earth begins to thin and clarify, becoming as transparent as a lens of ancient ice. In this pristine, high-altitude silence, the first lights of the new night begin to pierce the velvet dark. These are not the frantic, flickering stars of a dying world, but steady, crystalline anchors of silver and cold blue, the gems of the void returning to their appointed stations in the deep architecture of the cosmos. Each star ignites with a slow, rhythmic pulse, a gentle expansion and contraction of light that mirrors the breathing of the sleepers in the Holt below. This is the optical heartbeat of the universe, a visual metronome that provides a soft, hypnotic focal point for the internal eye. As you look up into this newly minted sky, feel the rhythm of the light syncing with your own pulse,
slowing the frantic pace of your day until your heartbeat is nothing more than a quiet, celestial vibration. The stars are not distant, unreachable fires. They are the eyes of the dark, watching over your sanctuary with a cold, protective calm. The constellations of the old world have been rearranged, their ancient stories dissolved into a new, nameless geometry. There is a profound relief in this unnaming, a sense that the old categories, the old labels, and the old maps of your life have been erased. In the sanctuary of your rest, let the nameless stars represent a state of pure, uncomplicated being. You do not need to identify the lights, nor do you need to navigate by them. You are merely a part of the dark matter between them, a quiet, heavy presence drifting in the boundless silver of the night. The light of these new stars does not cut the darkness. It bathes it in a soft, chromatic glow that turns the shadows of your room into the indigo mists of the legend. This low-intensity illumination is the perfect guide for the transition into a deep theta wave slumber. It provides just enough structure for the mind to remain anchored in the story, yet its dimness encourages the eyes to close and the brain to surrender its vigilance. The world is darkening into its final, most beautiful state, a star-dusted silence where the only law is the gravity of the night. There is a deep subsonic shimmer that accompanies the return of the stars, the sound of light vibrating through the vacuum of the new sky. It is a high-frequency hum so subtle that it is felt as a cooling sensation in the marrow of the bones, a crystalline chill that offsets the residual warmth of Surt's fire. This internal cooling is a powerful sedative, a feeling of being tempered by the starlight until your body is as still and as solid as a mountain of silver. You are being woven into the fabric of the new night, a single thread in a tapestry of infinite quiet light.
As the stars find their permanent anchors in the velvet deep, a new radiance begins to climb above the serrated green peaks of the rising world. This is the first voyage of the new moon, the sister of the sun, who emerges not as a fleeing prey of the wolves, but as a serene and sovereign queen of the night. She does not cast the harsh, revealing glare of the day. She brings a soft, monochromatic wash of liquid silver that flows over the valleys of the new earth like a cooling, luminous tide. This light is a rhythmic, slow wave illumination that pulses with the steady cadence of the tides, a visual sedative that invites the mind to release its hold on the sharp edges of reality. The moon travels a path that is both ancient and entirely new, a slow-motion arc through the indigo sky that measures the heartbeat of the cosmos. As she moves, she casts long, rhythmic shadows across the fields of unsown grain, turning the landscape into a shifting tapestry of charcoal and pearl. These shadows are soft and blurred, lacking the jagged intensity of the old world's darkness. To watch these silver shapes move across the Noctoscape of your internal eye is to experience the ultimate de-escalation of the senses. You are being pulled into a world of grayscale peace, a minimalist environment where the brain can finally cease its constant processing of color and complexity. There is a deep subsonic hum that accompanies the moon's first voyage,
the sound of tidal forces beginning to tug at the newborn oceans. It is a low-frequency oceanic surge that resonates within the chest, a pull and release vibration that acts as a powerful anchor for the body. As you lie in the safety of your bed, let this lunar gravity take hold of your limbs. Feel the weight of the moon pulling the tension out of your muscles, leaving you as buoyant and as fluid as the rising tide. You are a part of the water, a part of the light, and a part of the slow, rhythmic rotation of the heavens. The silver light of the moon acts as a coolant for the spirit, neutralizing the last residual sparks of Surtri's fire that may linger in the memory. It is a temperature of the soul, a serene chill that settles over the skin and slows the breathing into a deep, effortless sigh. In this lunar atmosphere, the air is thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and cold salt spray, a heavy aromatic veil that builds a protective barrier around your sanctuary. You are tucked into a hollow of the silver light, protected by the very distance of the celestial traveler. The white noise of the moon's path is a sound like the distant, rhythmic turning of a great glass gear, a subtle mechanical whisper that masks the last echoes of the waking world. This sound provides a steady and reliable background for the transition into a deep, restorative slumber. It is the sound of the universe locking into its new, peaceful alignment, a structural integrity that ensures your rest will remain undisturbed throughout the dark. The moon is on her watch, the path is set, and the sky is a mirror of the peace within.
Across the vast, undulating plains of the newborn earth, a sound begins to stir that is neither a wind nor a voice, but the collective, rhythmic respiration of the world itself. This is the whispering of the unsown grain, the millions of emerald stalks that have pushed through the fertile silt of the great sink to claim their place under the silver moon. They do not grow with the frantic struggle of the old world's weeds. They ascend with a slow, synchronized grace, their roots reaching deep into the cooling soil to anchor the planet's newfound peace. The sound they make as they sway is a continuous, sibilant hiss and sigh, a tapestry of white noise that blankets the landscape in a layer of auditory velvet. To listen to the whispering grass is to experience the breath of the meadows. Each stalk acts as a tiny, living reed, catching the cool night air and vibrating with a low, soothing frequency that resonates in the very marrow of the bones. This is the B-flat of the natural world, a fundamental tone of growth and restoration that masks the erratic, sharp static of the modern mind. As you lie in the sanctuary of your bed, let this field of sound expand until it fills the room. Imagine the grass brushing against the edges of your consciousness, smoothing out the jagged thoughts of the day and replacing them with a steady, rhythmic rustle that requires no analysis and no response. The grass moves in long, slow-motion waves, a visual undulation that mirrors the heavy, oceanic heaving of the deep sea. It is a liquid landscape where the boundaries between the land and the wind are blurred into a singular, flowing motion. This rhythmic swaying is a powerful hypnotic for the internal eye. It is a repetitive, predictable pattern that encourages the brain to let go of its vigilance. You are not watching a field, you are watching the heartbeat of the earth, a slow and steady pulse that signifies that the great work of the renewal is complete. The world is breathing, and you are invited to join its cadence. There is a deep, grounding aroma that rises from the whispering grass, the scent of crushed clover, damp earth, and the first sweet nectar of the new morning. This fragrance is a heavy, atmospheric weight that pulls the body deeper into the mattress, anchoring the spirit in the fertile reality of the myth. To inhabit this scent is to feel the safety of the soil, a sense of being rooted in a world that is fresh, clean, and entirely yours. You are becoming as heavy and as still as the earth beneath the grain, a quiet spark protected by the very growth that surrounds you. The whispering of the grass acts as a conversational shield, a layer of sound that ensures no external echo can breach the sanctuary of the narrative. It is the sound of a world talking to itself in its sleep, a private and sacred dialogue between the roots and the stars. In this atmosphere, the voice of your own worries is rendered silent, drowned out by the overwhelming, gentle consensus of the meadow. You are a guest in the long conversation of the night, a silent witness to the peace that follows the storm. The grass is tall, the wind is soft, and the world is telling you that the time for doing has ended.
In the heart of the new plain, where the grass grows tallest and the silver mist of the morning stays longest, the new grads, Vidar, Vali, Magni, and Modi, gather in a circle of profound, quiet fellowship. They do not speak of the thunder or the fire. They sit in the soft, yielding emerald and reach their hands into the cool, dark soil. There, buried beneath the roots of the new world, they find the remnants of a lost age, the golden game pieces of their fathers. These are the small, heavy artifacts of the celestial chess matches played in the halls of the old Asgard, miniature kings, towers, and warriors forged from a gold that never tarnishes and never loses its warmth. As the gods lift these pieces from the earth, the soft clink and chime of metal against metal acts as a delicate, rhythmic lullaby for the soul. This is the sound of memory without pain, a gentle, melodic resonance that acknowledges the past while remaining firmly anchored in the peace of the present. To imagine the weight of these golden pieces in your own hand is to experience the ultimate grounding sensation. They are cool to the touch, smooth and solid, a physical certainty that masks the erratic, shifting static of the waking mind. You are holding the history of the universe in a single, quiet palm, and it is as light as a dream. The gods begin to arrange the pieces in the grass, not for a game of strategy or war, but for a ritual of recognition. Each placement of the golden figure is accompanied by a slow, rhythmic thud against the mossy earth, a steady, percussive cadence that pulses with the heartbeat of the new world. This low-frequency arrangement is a powerful hypnotic, a repetitive and predictable motion that invites your own physical form to go completely limp and heavy. The game of your day, the moves you made, the strategies you planned, and the victories you sought is over. You are merely a spectator to this silent, divine play,
a quiet spark in a world where the pieces are finally at rest. There is a radiant, golden and shiny luminescence that emanates from the game pieces, catching the amber light of the new sun and reflecting it into the soft shadows of the grove. This light is not a glare, but a slow, pulsating glow, a visual breathing that guides the internal eye toward a state of deep theta wave relaxation. To watch the light dance upon the gold is to feel the warmth of the heritage, a sense of being part of a long and unbreakable line that stretches back through the end of the world and into the beginning of the next. You are safe in the circle of the gods, protected by the very artifacts of their peace. The white noise of the game pieces is a sound like the distant turning of a jeweler's wheel, a subtle mechanical whisper that builds a protective barrier around your sanctuary. This sound ensures that no external distraction can breach the peace of the narrative, creating a private and sacred space where the only task is to remain still and listen to the clinking of the gold. The gods are laughing softly, a sound that is less a noise and more a vibration of pure, uncomplicated joy. In this atmosphere, the voice of your own worries is rendered silent, replaced by the steady, golden consensus of the meadow.
As the amber light of the new dawn begins to stretch its long golden fingers across the dew-heavy plains, a sound emerges that the 9 realms has not heard since the first frost of the Fimbulwinter. It begins as a single silver vibration, a solitary ping of melody that hangs in the crisp, ozone-rich air like a drop of liquid light. This is the first song of the new birds, creatures with feathers the color of polished malachite and eyes like ancient cooling embers. They do not sing with the frantic, territorial sharp notes of the old world. They breathe their music in a slow, rhythmic call and response that acts as a celestial tapestry of sound, weaving the silence of the night into the promise of the day. This melody is a series of low-frequency flutes and soft percussive chirps that resonate with the B-flat of the whispering grass. It is a natural white noise that fills the hollows of the mind, smoothing out the jagged edges of any residual thoughts. As you lie in your sanctuary, let this avian choir build a protective barrier around your rest. The rhythm of the song is a steady, predictable pulse, a thrum and echo that pulls your heartbeat into a slow, resting frequency. You are not listening to a song, you are listening to the heartbeat of the renewal, a sound that signifies that the world is finally, safely, and permanently awake. The birds move through the white-barked trees of the halt with a fluid, silent grace, their wings creating a soft, rhythmic whir that sounds like the turning of a silk-bound wheel. This repetitive mechanical soundscape provides a stable background for the transition into a deeper state of relaxation. To watch these emerald flashes move against the indigo sky of your internal eye is to experience the ultimate de-escalation of the senses. You are being pulled into a world of minimalist beauty, a landscape where the only movement is the slow motion flight of the guardians. You are a quiet spark in the shadow of their wings, protected by the very air they stir. There is a profound, grounding aroma that accompanies the new song, the scent of blooming mountain heather, wild honey, and the cold mineral spray of the new waterfalls. This fragrance is a heavy, atmospheric weight
that anchors the spirit in the fertile reality of the myth. To inhabit this scent is to feel the safety of the morning, a sense of being part of a world that is fresh, clean, and entirely undisturbed. You are becoming as still as the moss beneath the trees, a quiet presence protected by the very melody that surrounds you. The voice of your own worries is rendered silent, replaced by the steady, melodic consensus of the grove. The song of the new birds acts as a vibrational shield, a layer of acoustic energy that ensures no external echo can breach the sanctuary of the narrative. It is the sound of a world celebrating its own survival in a state of quiet, disciplined joy. In this atmosphere, the hunt of the old world is a forgotten dream. There are no predators in this sky, only the singers. You are a guest in their first long hymn to the light, a silent witness to the peace that follows the storm. The sun is rising, the dew is shimmering, and the birds are telling you that the day is safe, but the night is still yours to hold.
As the gods sit among the golden game pieces and the new birds weave their silver melodies through the air, a different kind of light begins to stir from the roots of the world. It is a soft, rhythmic pulsing emanating from the very stones of the plain, the memory of the runes. These are the ancient symbols of power and wisdom that Odin once plucked from the abyss of Yggdrasil, now cleansed of their old burdens of war and sacrifice. They appear not as jagged carvings in rock, but as ethereal, glowing geometries floating just above the surface of the soil, their light the color of a fading ember or a deep-sea pearl. To look upon these runes is to see the blueprints of existence without the weight of the construction. Each symbol, Ansus for the breath, Urus for the strength, and Gebo for the gift, vibrates with a low-frequency hum that resonates in the deep cavities of the chest. This is the acoustic memory of the universe, a steady and reliable drone that acts as a structural anchor for the spirit. As you lie in the sanctuary of your bed, let these glowing shapes settle into your consciousness. They do not ask to be read or interpreted, they only ask to be felt. The runes are the white noise of wisdom, a repetitive and predictable frequency that ensures the foundation of your rest is absolute. The runes pulse in a slow, oceanic cadence, a rhythmic expansion of light that mirrors the heaving of a calm sea. This visual breathing is a powerful hypnotic for the internal eye, a gentle and constant stimulus that prevents the mind from wandering back to the sharp, static details of the day. You are watching the ultimate simplification of knowledge, where the complex worries of your life are reduced to a few glowing ancient lines. In this atmosphere, the logic of the old world is a forgotten language. There is only the logic of the heart, a steady and quiet consensus that the path forward is clear and safe. There is a profound grounding aroma that accompanies the memory of the runes, the scent of petrichor, old parchment, and the cold, clean mineral of a mountain cave. This fragrance is a heavy, atmospheric weight that pulls the body deeper into the mattress, anchoring the spirit in the timeless reality of the myth. To inhabit this scent is to feel the safety of the law, a sense of being part of a world that is governed by harmony rather than chaos. You are becoming as still and as solid as the stones of the plain, a quiet presence protected by the very wisdom that surrounds you.
The memory of the runes acts as a vibrational shield, a layer of light that ensures no external echo can breach the sanctuary of the narrative. It is the sound of the universe remembering its purpose in a state of quiet, disciplined peace. In this atmosphere, the riddles of the old world are solved. There are no more questions in this light, only answers that require no words. You are a guest in the long, silent memory of the gods, a witness to the clarity that follows the storm. The sun is steady, the grass is whispering, and the runes are telling you that the history of the world is now a closed and beautiful book.
The amber dawn of the new earth does not sharpen into a harsh, demanding day, but remains suspended in a state of eternal golden grace. The birds have completed their first hymn, the runes have settled into the bedrock of the world, and the gods have found their peace among the game pieces of the past. Now the entire narrative begins its final, majestic contraction, a slow pulling in of the light and the sound, until the vastness of the 9 realms is concentrated into the single, quiet space of your own breathing. This is the final breath of the legend, the moment where the story ceases to be a sequence of images and becomes a living, rhythmic part of your own stillness. The atmosphere of the new world undergoes a final transformation, becoming a thick velvet shroud of indigo silence. This is not an empty quiet, but a pressurized, supportive dark that feels like a weightless blanket being drawn over your consciousness. The distant hiss and sigh of the whispering grass and the low-frequency hum of the cosmic gears begin to smooth out into a singular, unwavering drone, a brown noise of the soul that acts as the ultimate acoustic stabilizer. This sound is the bedrock of your sanctuary, a continuous, reliable vibration that ensures no thought of the old world can breach the absolute peace of this moment. The colors of the legend, the emerald of the plains, the silver of the moon, and the gold of the game pieces begin to bleed together, losing their distinct edges and merging into a soft, monochromatic wash of deep, restorative shadow. To watch this dissolution with your internal eye is to experience a final de-escalation of the spirit. You are no longer tracking a journey or witnessing a battle. You are merely drifting on a tide of pure, uncomplicated existence. The Noctoscape has achieved its purpose, providing a minimalist landscape where the brain is finally permitted to cease its labor. The weight of your body becomes a grounding force of profound significance. Feel the gravity of the new earth pulling you into the mattress, as if you are being tucked into the very roots of the world tree. You are as heavy as the mountains of the beginning, as still as the stones of the plain, and as safe as the sleepers in Hodmimir's Holt. There is no tension left in your limbs, no static left in your mind, and no doing left in your heart. The legend has carried you across the fire and the flood, through the death of the gods and the rising of the green, only to leave you here at the center of your own rest. The rhythm of the story is now nothing more than the rhythmic expansion and contraction of your own lungs. Each breath is a slow, oceanic surge that carries you further away from the shores of the waking world and deeper into the lightless, warm waters of a dreamless sleep. The runes are gone, the gods are silent, and the sun has found its perfect amber stasis. The world is complete, the cycle is closed, and the path to a deep, restorative dark is now the only direction that exists.
You are a quiet spark in a universe that has found its final, perfect alignment. There is nothing left to watch, nothing left to hear, and nothing left to do. The 30 chapters of the legend have been woven into a single protective cocoon of sound and shadow, and you are tucked safely inside. The story is over, the silence has begun, and the night is entirely, absolutely yours. Lie perfectly still and feel the final breath of the legend in your marrow. You are heavy, you are quiet, and you are surrounded by the protective mists of the new world's first true sleep. The gates are closed, the light is dim, and the heart of the night is finally ready to receive you. Sink into the velvet dark of the resolution, and let the rhythmic stillness of the end carry you into the heart of the deep, restorative dark.